Hey, what's going on, guys? So today we've got a really cool conversation with my buddy Brent Smith, aka Plant Romance. And he's got a really cool story. He's so dedicated to plants, it just blows me away. All of his content is so amazing. But what I didn't know was that he had some serious health issues for a long time. Today, we're gonna dig into how plants completely transform that. Okay, so here's the big problem. You want to live plant-based and excel at your health and performance. You're looking for real ways to change your life and the world by reducing your footprint. How do we continue to perform in every facet of our lives and do it without eating meat and following the format that's been force-fed to us our entire lives? And do it on your own terms through a plant-based diet? That's the real question, and I'll give you those answers and more. I'm Marcus Watts, and welcome to the Vegan Transition. Okay, so Marcus here, and I'm super excited because today on the show, we've got my buddy Brent Smith from Plant Romance, and today he's going to tell you a really cool story about how he was born with cystic fibrosis and how later in his life he learned to completely go off his medication and use plants to heal his body from the inside out, which I'm absolutely huge on. So we're going to bring him on. And if you guys don't already follow, make sure you guys go follow the Vegan Transition, vegan.transition. You guys will see me when I share this again later. But that's where this podcast is going to be on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. What's up, Brent? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. All right, so I always figured I have to like mute my audio on or turn down my audio on my computer. So yeah, man, I'm really glad to have you on. You know, we got connected actually just a few weeks ago. Shout out Plant-Based Ben for that connection.
Yeah.
But like when you were telling me your story, I thought it was really crazy, and I just wanted to share what you know, everything that you've been through with people, because so many of my followers obviously are plant-based. I have a lot that aren't and that are just interested because they've seen me make that transition. But with the vegan transition being all about learning how to like make things fit for your life, I just thought you were perfect. So thank you so much for coming on, man.
No worries, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. So, dude, let's just start out with like a short synopsis of what you were telling me about how you were born with cystic fibrosis and how you ended up, you know, in a scenario where you didn't see it coming, but you would then end up going plant-based. And then I think we'll just dive into all the other cool nuggets and stuff, man.
Well, man, so basically I was born with cystic fibrosis and diagnosed at about 2 months old. And it became like a challenging, it's like lungs, pancreas, liver, like sweat glands, like a whole bunch of other things my body's affected by. But when I was growing up, I listened to my doctors, my dietitians, nutritionists at the hospital, and they were all like, meat, dairy, sugar, fat, and those foods I thought were healthy. And then when I looked into it more, I found out like dairy was a huge like factor of like causing me a lot of like issues.
Right.
And then when I transitioned to veganism completely, it's like so many of my ailments or symptoms went away, and my general health just started improving. You know, like I just really felt like I was thriving for once in my life.
That's amazing, man. All right, so bro, for those that don't know, let's break down cystic fibrosis a little bit more. Let's break this down. Explain to people what it was that you had to deal with, you know, how it affected you, just so people can kind of understand a little bit more. Because a lot of people have problems way less invasive than you had, and they don't understand how it can just help them with their regular day life and dealing with not anything really crazy. And what you dealt with is just mind-blowing to me.
Well, yeah, so I have a few like organs that are affected. Like I said, like the lungs, pancreas, and my liver and such. So because of that, it becomes really difficult for my body to absorb a lot of the nutrients. And my body, because of the organs being not as optimal, they wind up using more energy. So my body needs like high calories, high fat, nutrient dense foods to like provide myself with the right amount of nutrients and like molecules for my body to actually work.
Right.
Omega-3 fatty acids are another huge thing. So that's why I like incorporate a lot of like hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, like walnuts and such like that. Because if I have too many omega-6s, or like just if I don't have enough omega-3s in general, especially on a plant-based diet, which is incredibly important, my body will start like feeling bad, you know, like I'll actually feel it. So with cystic fibrosis, my body was told that I need to acquire a lot of these nutrients but the quality or where they came from didn't matter so much for my doctors. Whereas it's my health, and like at a certain stage, I had to take responsibility for my past, my present, and what I'm going to be doing in the future. You know, because like nobody, like my doctors aren't going to help me. They're not going to come and like spoon feed me food that I need. They're going to tell me a general diagnosis of my symptoms, and then just give me a general like ingredients of foods that I should eat. But everyone is different. Everybody thrives on different sorts of nutrients. My body needs a specific kind, and they didn't know exactly what my body needed. Whereas when I did the research and actually looked into it, I found out what I needed myself, and that it was being like plant-based foods.
Yeah, man. I talk about this on episode 1 of the show, where I kind of give my backstory, and from being in the best shape of my life to ending up in the hospital, the week of Christmas for an entire week with 2 blood clots that turned into pulmonary embolism when I was 7% body fat and supposedly like healthy. It was very eye-opening, and it was the same thing. They're like, okay, take this medication. You can take this medication. I'm like, guys, this can't be the answer. This can't be the answer. And again, same thing, using plants. It was like I healed and I'm not trying to say, sorry guys, my mom just called me. But, I'm not trying to say, don't listen to your doctors and go heal yourself with plants. But I think that situations that you're talking about and that you and I can share and relate to are just giving people an opportunity to understand, like, the most important medicine before you get to that like last resort is what you're consuming, the medicine you're consuming every single day, and the nutrients that you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Like your body needs like very specific molecules to like build itself. Like your body, like when you ingest things or take things in, whether it's like oxygen or like the air you breathe or whatever comes on your skin, your body has to like break these down. And if there's anything like toxic involved with that, your body absorbs those toxins and have to like deal with it, right? And if you don't have like an optimal system, like if your lymph nodes are like clogged up, or for example, my lungs contain a lot more mucus just because of the way it like produces.
Right.
So I have like more chance for infection, bacteria, viruses, etc., specifically with my lungs because they overproduce mucus. So they become more susceptible to illness. Whereas but a lot of people would have like a liver or kidneys that are overworked and full of toxins. And if they're not like cleaning those out with the proper nutrients and molecules, these toxins build up and everything just kind of gets clogged up with all these like issues. And then people start having these symptoms and they're like, oh, where are these coming from? And then they start getting general poor health, like fatigue, drowsiness, headaches, etc. And then it turns into these actual like full-blown diseases like cancer, obesity, and then they run into like diabetes and heart failure and all these things. And then eventually they die and they're wondering why they're dying. And they realize most of them are put on these like drugs that don't actually like cure the root cause. They're just like Band-Aid effect. They're just like throwing like gasoline on the fire. And they think that the liquid or the gasoline is going to put out the fire.
Yeah.
But it's actually igniting and making it go worse,
I love it. So also, hey guys, if you guys end up with questions, please go ahead and comment them. We won't be able to answer until we get through like all of the conversation, but we will go back and make sure that we get them answered. Also, if you guys don't already know, make sure you guys go follow his account. It's at Plant Romance. All right. So hold on. There's a dude I'm about to kick off of here. There's some guy that's like an absolute jerk. Some really mean stuff, apparently, because he's got some personal issues going on.
That's okay. Some people, maybe he's just having a bad day. know?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, hold your phone down just a little bit too, because on the Zoom I can see it. I can see it on the Zoom.
Wait, which one?
Oh, on the Zoom, yeah. On the Zoom, I can just see you holding it. Yeah. So, all right. So, bro, let's dig into how the journey started, okay? Because you weren't always vegan, you weren't always plant-based. You're following what most of us are doing, right? We're doing what people say is the thing to do. We're following what used to be understood as the healthy route. What is it that started you on this plant-based journey that would lead us to this amazing turnaround that you'd end up having?
So, like I said before to you personally, I'm very inquisitive and curious about things. So I always like to research. Like I like to check who funded the research. I like to check who these doctors are, find out if they're actually even real people. You have no idea how many articles I've read and seen people, like the doctors I research. I'm like, this person literally doesn't exist. They didn't go to this university, none of this. And it's like really wild because like you could just take up a study, write a doctor's name, throw in Yale, and then people would believe that, right? So I'm very inquisitive about this kind of stuff. So when it came to like my health specifically, I really delved in deep. So my doctor's prescribing these things called Boost. Essentially what they are is just sugar, dairy, and synthetic vitamins and minerals. So that's what they thought would like replenish the molecules in my body that I need. But like I was saying before, they're toxic, like they're not inclusive to what my body needs to thrive. So because of that, I had to like ditch the Boost, but that became really concerning for my doctors. They said like, how are you going to get this much fat? How are you going to get this much stuff? So I was like, well, what about smoothies? Aren't smoothies like the holy grail of nutrient dense, like packed of, liquid drink for you? And
then yeah, Brent, you can't consume calories that are all liquid and your body be able to process the nutrients.
That's what they say. They're like, this looks kind of weird. I don't know if you can keep this up. And I was like, well, like, what's the alternative? And
thank you. That's such a great point. That's such a great point, man.
Yeah, like their alternative was like they had nothing good. They were like, well, maybe you could take these handful of like pills. And I'm like, what are these? And they're like, more synthetic vitamins. I'm like, why would I take this? And just like, I don't know. It's just their compromise is so like not very, I don't know. They don't think of us, They think on their side being like, oh, you should take this, you should take this. But they never think of you should do what's right, So they never like give you the power to actually change and become like your own boss in the sense of like controlling your own nutrition.
Now, how many years ago was this? Because it's funny because now, and a lot of people bash like what the health, and look, you can have an opinion on it, whatever you want. The biggest point that I have about the documentary is whether you like it or not, it made you have the conversation. Which a lot of times people like, it's a lot of things we can go to that are happening in our country right now. And I'm like, you might not like it and the message might suck, but at least the conversation is there for you to talk about, like, is there a problem with this? But I feel like after that documentary came out, a lot more doctors were like, I had people coming back to me that were my clients were saying, oh yeah, my doctor like suggested that I go plant-based. So I was wondering if I could talk to you. And I'm like, really? And I started hearing it all the time. So how far back was this? Because I think that's good to give the context as to like what the times were and what those conversations were.
So that was about 3 years ago.
Sounds about right.
And this was like, I was already doing like research into a lot of other aspects of like banking, the food industry, like pharmaceuticals, all this stuff. So like my distrust for government in general became that very like widespread, I would say. And that involved like doctors and such, because no offense to them, like I'm sure they like mean really well, but they're just taught differently. And it's not their fault. Like they were duped, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not discrediting like the hard work and like all the information.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Like they're experts in a field, but that field isn't necessarily the best choice of action for a lot of people. Like if you're already so far gone in a certain aspect, or if you have some sort of like disease, like you definitely need to go see a doctor, and you definitely possibly need antibiotics or whatever happens. Like I believe you can incorporate Western medicine with Eastern medicine with just proper optimal nutrition for your body to thrive. I feel like they're all like related and you can work them all together. But the Western medicine is usually, like you said, last case scenario. Like you don't need to be put on a lot of these drugs, like if you just do some lifestyle changes, those symptoms would reduce and you wouldn't need the drugs that they want you to be put on.
Yeah.
So about 3 years ago, I was like, what do I do so I don't have to be drinking this Boost? And then that's when I like compromised with the smoothies. And then my girlfriend was vegetarian and went vegan slowly after. And I was like, you know what? Like, this is probably best that I just completely cut out meat, Like, I didn't see any actual need for it. I found out, like, most meat is just garbage anyways. Like, the meat I was eating wasn't, like, great quality, like, organic grass-fed beef. Like, it was like McDonald's. Like it was like go to like a restaurant and get like.
Well, I mean, that's like most. But what you're saying is that's what most people are used to.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool to dig deeper in the conversation because I feel the same way. I'm like, hey, listen, like, you need to like make sure you're getting regular checkups and speak to your doctor before you make diet changes. And you need to be getting blood labs done, twice a year. But then I'm also saying, if you want to start with getting change in your body, start with what you're putting in your mouth because you can control that. You can start there and you can start making better choices. And another thing that you touched on that I think is very important for people to understand, like you said, look, you need to go see your doctors, but understand that a doctor is going to tell you that they spend not even like a semester like on a full tilt nutrition course. You know what I'm saying? Their job is they're in medicine. They're in job to med. That's like a surgeon. Someone that's a surgeon, their job is to cut. They don't. Their job is not to have you come and then tell you to go to a farmer's market or tell you that you need to lose weight first and then that you need, so that you can heal your body. Their job is to cut. They're a specialist, so you need to understand that. If people, I think, took that more into context, it would help them to understand why so much of the conversation, like you're saying, back in 2016, 2015, 2014 was the way that it was. But now people are just more aware. And that's why more and more doctors are saying, hey, you need to start removing. And this is something that I always talk about. How come when you get really old, right, and you start getting like arthritis and all that stuff, they start telling you that you should do what? Take meat out of your diet. They're like, oh, stop eating red meats and, consume more of this, more green vegetables. So my thought process was, hey, listen, I really am not sure how this is going to go. But if they're going to tell me that when I'm old, then I'm just going to start it now. And the last thing I'll say is it's the opposite. Bodybuilders. If you speak to a lot of old school bodybuilders, one of the main resources that they use to get in high calorie foods, baby food. Literally. I used to buy like cases of baby food from Costco because when you look at the caloric, the caloric density of it, it's a ton of calories. And why? Because a baby's growing and they need those calories. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to do the same thing that we do for babies. And it helped me to put on a lot of size and strength. I wasn't eating just baby food, but it's the same thing. I'm like, in the beginning of your life, they tell you to do something and eat a certain way, right? You're not, you're eating plants, you're eating sweet potatoes, it's apples, it's green peas. And then when you get old, they're telling you, hey, eat like this. And I'm like, what if we just kind of combine those two together because they're pretty close to the same thing?
Yeah, it's strange that like when you're young, you start off on, well, you should start off on like your mother's breast milk, and it's like 60, 70% fat. Like it's like supposed to like keep you energized and like with a lot of calories and like get you good and healthy and such, and then like shortly after they want you to incorporate like nutrient dense vegetables and stuff and fruits, like get them kind of used to that kind of stuff. And then out of nowhere, they're just like, all right, now dairy and meat, and then like these so mucus forming and acidic, and people grow up thinking this is a normal thing. And the reason why is because the parents were programmed prematurely, the baby didn't have a choice. It was the programming from the parents that was programmed by their parents that had like the government with their vested interest to make money off of whatever they sell. So it becomes this whole thing where nutrition is kind of overlooked because greed is in the way.
Yeah. If you guys want to get some backstory to dig even deeper in what Brent's saying, I think it was the Forks Over Knives documentary, but there's a couple. Just look up like the boom of the dairy and cheese industry. Just look up how that started and how the FDA was a part of creating more ways to sell cheese. How there was an actual faction of the FDA whose job was, you guys create ways to sell more cheese because this skim milk, this non-fat milk that we're making is curdling and turning into cheese, and we can't waste this, so we got to make money off of it. And that's where government cheese came from. That's where Cheese Whiz, Kraft cheese, like the triple cheeseburger, you know what I mean? All these things that, and one of the things that you hear from people, man, I can't give up cheese. Yeah, because your parents were programmed, your parents' parents were programmed, and you've been programmed to think that cheese is a normal thing to have, when in actuality, in the form that we're having it, it's not. Like, it's nothing like what our ancestors had when they actually made their own cheese. And even that, like we're saying, your body still doesn't have the best response to.
Yeah. Like, there's a very small percentage of humans that can actually, like, withstand like dairy,
Right.
you know, and it's only after it's been like processed. So like you can't just go and like drink milk right out of a cow. Like a lot of the times you're gonna get sick. Like there's a very small percentage of people that are either like genetically adapt to doing that, or they're just like used to it because they've been drinking like that for so long. But they don't realize to get off of it, they're gonna start thriving.
And then that's what I was gonna say. A lot of things that you do, you don't realize until you remove it from your diet. So food elimination is something that I coach a lot. Get down to the bare minimums of a diet, and then you'll be able to see how your body responds best. But so, bro, so so you're living with your girlfriend. She's going vegan. You start to say, all right, well, now I kind of have like no choice in a way. What were your fears or struggles that you had about going into a full plant-based diet based off of what you were used to, culture change, what you've been taught, and what all of the doctors and stuff had been telling you?
Well, my biggest concern, honestly, was just getting enough nutrients like vitamins, minerals, the omega-3 fats, vitamin D especially, like because I live in Canada, so it's like winter right now, so I don't get enough vitamin D. So what I do actually is I love mushrooms, so I'll put them on like the windowsill for about 12 to 24 hours before I eat them. So they absorb the vitamin D, and you can actually see them get like browner if you get like, for example, white corn.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So that's how I get my vitamin D, like from that. There's also another product that has vitamin D. It's like a basically seaweed, essentially.
Okay.
Something. So it's like there's a few things here and there that get
that
I'm concerned about when it comes to nutrients. But generally, I get enough of the proper nutrients in my diet, I find. I did get tested like kind of recently, and the only thing that was down a bit was vitamin A. But the only reason I thought that is because I didn't get kale for like 2 weeks, so that I didn't put any kale in my smoothies. And that's like one of the main sources of vitamin K that I got. So I chalked it up to that. So it could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Right. I'll piggyback off of that, and I'll support what you're saying, because after being plant-based for like, I had blood labs done in 2015, and then I had blood labs done again last year, right? So I'm heavy, no meat. I do not supplement B12. I really don't supplement anything. But the way that I eat, or I'll have kale for 2 weeks, then I'll have spinach for 2 weeks, and then I'll have like kale and chard, and I'll just throw like mint and all these other things, and I'll kind of rotate back and forth between these different greens. Same thing with fruits. I'll have pineapples for like a month, and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to have apples, and I'm going to have bananas, and I'll have this type of berry. And I kind of rotate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to get my blood labs, they were literally like, oh, like your iron and B12 are really good. They're like, you must eat a lot of meat. And I was like, it's funny you say that. Haven't eaten meat since 2014. And they were like, really? And I'm like, yes, I just eat a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. And that right there, so I had heard other people say it. I had seen studies on it. But for me to experience it myself, they were like, yeah, literally, like your blood labs are some of the best we've ever seen. And again, at that time I was like 34, and again, been completely not even having eggs or anything like that in a long time. And it was just very, very eye-opening to me. But again, that's why I talk about, hey, like, you need to make sure that you're getting blood labs so you can know where you stand, because certain people are going to have natural deficiencies. And if you don't have this rounded diet, that's the biggest thing about being plant-based, I think, because you can eat a ton of vegan junk food and stuff like that and still have processed foods. And then you can choose to eat the same foods all the time. But having that rounded, like having the foods that of course, that you can try to get in season, because you're in Canada, so it's a little different, right? Like what's in season, you're not going to really get as much. You're going to need to get things in from other places. But like having a variety of fruits, a variety of vegetables, and especially your greens can drastically change your life, man.
Yeah, like I recently did a post about like a vegan food pyramid, and essentially the bottom 40% was leafy greens and stuff. The next like 35% were fruits, so like all the fruits, and then about I think it was like 20% was nuts and seeds, and the last like 15% were like microalgae, nutritional yeast, and such like that. So generally, it's like a pretty accurate way of like if you ate by that kind of like generalness, you'd probably be well off, you know?
Yeah, Definitely, man.
Oh, also there was legumes and
Oh, go
such.
ahead, please. What? I'm sorry. What'd you say?
There was also legumes and like beans and whatever as well.
And tons of different ones. I have tons, and like there are a lot of people who, you know, especially because I was like really big on the paleo, so they were big on like removing that from your diet. But that's again where I think the food elimination comes in. Like you need to remove it from your diet, you know, and then slowly add one item in at a time and see how your body responds. Because not enough people, Brent, are watching their bowel movements. Not enough people are really tracking their hydration and you know, with their rest combined with all these other things. One test I used to give my clients is to say, hey, when you add a new food in your diet, just check your socks at the end of the day. And you'll notice like if you have inflammation or not. And that's your body speaking to you in as many ways as it can, you know, bowel movements and inflammation and stuff like that.
That's another, I want to quickly touch on the whole like anti-nutrients in food, like phytic acid and like all that. There are ways to like reduce those, not completely eliminate them, but like if you have like a pressure cooker, that's really handy because it like definitely decreases a lot of the anti-nutrients. When it comes to like nuts and seeds, they have like protective like
layers,
to it, you know? And to break those down, a lot of people like to soak them or even sprout them because it breaks down those anti-nutrients, but then it also would increase a lot of the enzymes and vitamins and minerals in them too. So it's really interesting that plants, you can basically just kind of like mess with them on a weird little scale, like with little tricks and hints here, and then they become healthier for human consumption.
I like it, man. I like it. So your doctors are telling you that you need to do this. You're, you know, going vegan for the first time. What plan did you create to overcome these obstacles that you kind of saw were going to be placed in front of you? Or was there like a major obstacle that popped up for you that you were like, man, how am I gonna deal with this? You know what I'm saying? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, honestly, I thought like the biggest problem would be like getting enough nutrients. But then I literally just looked into foods that had the highest nutrients in them. And then I would incorporate those, you know? So like I would need like a lot of vitamin A or vitamin K or something. And I'd be like, wow, kale dominates in these like areas like sweet potato or like yam. So much vitamin A. It's like just incorporate foods like that. If I'm looking for like fat soluble vitamins, those are the ones that like my body would need more of. Like almonds have a lot of vitamin E, avocado, like all these foods that are like really nutrient dense. I just like ate more of them. You know, like in fact, like I almost never even ate them before I went vegan because I was just like eating junk, you know. I was like, I'll just have meat and like a grain, you know. So it became like not a healthy diet of like fruits and vegetables. Whereas now it's like my diet's like 80% fruits and vegetables. So it's a really crazy switch from one to the other. And I thought nutrients were going to be a problem, but realistically, I got more nutrients on a vegan diet than I ever did before.
Yeah, I like it, man. I just love everything that you're sharing because it gives people that perspective that a lot of people don't have just because of what we're kind of, like you said, it's what we've kind of been force fed in the system. There's a really, really good app that's called Chronometer. I might even be saying it wrong. I don't know. Chronometer is how I say it.
I think.
Yeah, I think it might be Chronometer. But that app, for those of you guys that don't know, because Brent knows it, it will literally tell you the micronutrient value of all the food that you consume in a day. So with that app, what I learned was like, I was like, man, I'm getting like 4 times the daily recommended micronutrient intake value for almost every single area. And now I really can track, okay, what foods, what nutrients am I struggling to, you know, what vitamins, am I struggling to get? And now I can kind of attack that. But you wouldn't know if you didn't actually pay attention to it. And it taught me those 2 things. I was blown away. I was like, dang, like avocado has so much of this, or this food has so much of that. I thought I knew, but I was learning as I was going.
Yeah, like literally, that's a cool thing about it too, is when you just like fill out food, you don't even realize how much like nutrients are. I'm like pumpkin seeds, for example, you click on them and it's like lots of magnesium, a lot of zinc, a lot of tryptophan, which is like super hard to find in plants. Yet it's one of like the highest ranking foods in the world for tryptophan. And that like is a precursor to like your dopamine or serotonin, whatever. And like, it's a lot of people don't get enough. And everyone thinks of like turkey. They think of tryptophan. They're like, oh, there's so much. It's like pumpkin seeds by gram have like 10 times more, so it's really remarkable how plants, you just like fill little foods and then you realize like, wow, look at all of these things about this one food.
Yeah. Same thing about oh man, there was one that I can't, it just slipped my mind, but pumpkin seeds are good. I have them every single day. Oh, I was gonna talk about the vitamin C and kind of how the vitamin C concentration in a red pepper is more than an orange, and how you're talking about the tryptophan in the pumpkin seeds versus turkey. And what you have to understand is why do you think that's the only narrative that you know? Someone's in charge of that narrative, and pumpkin seeds cost way less to make, but there's not as big of an industry around them. I'm not gonna have massive factories, and I'm not gonna mass farm all these pumpkin seeds and stuff like that, right? It's too simple, right? I can't make a massive industry out of it that's gonna make the money that the meat industry makes. So they tell you this story that this is where you need to get your vitamin C from oranges. I mean, do you live in Florida as well?
I live in Winnipeg, Canada.
Okay. Oh yeah. You said that. I think I thought I saw on one of your posts something about Fort Lauderdale. I think that's where I went.
I did post that, but it's nice and winter here.
Okay. Yeah. But oranges are such a massive industry in our country and in Florida, to where they tell you the best place to get vitamin C when you get sick, have oranges, but then there's the sugar and there's all the other stuff, and it's how much oranges cost and how much orange juice costs. And it's like until you know, you just don't know that you don't know.
Yeah, like realistically, you could have like a cup of pineapples, strawberries, kiwis, and there's more vitamin C in that than if you were to have like an orange. So it's really strange that like people focus on like one aspect of something when it's not even like the only thing you could do for it,
Yeah. I love it, man. Bro, so like what did you learn from when you started doing all that research about the nutrients, when you started, you went hard into the smoothies, and now you've kicked, the medication fully? Like, just what was the biggest thing that you learned from that? What is the biggest thing that you say came about from it?
Well, I would just say it's the experience of becoming wiser in these areas and then being able to have the discipline to apply it to your life. Like, it became a choice of like, should I go out and have like a burger, or like, should I go out and have a cheat meal? Should I go buy meat, etc.? And then it really came down to like looking at myself and being like, do I need this? Like, do I even want this? Yeah. And like, what would happen if I did get it? It very introspective when you make this whole like change, because you've been programmed a certain way, right? And like changing your programming is so hard to do, especially for very deep programming, like from your parents, for example. Yeah. Like my mom used to reward me with McDonald's, So getting McDonald's became a treat. It would remind me of feeling good because my mom would feed me this and I would be celebrated, So eating McDonald's was a reward for me. And although that's what like my brain was programmed to think, realistically, it was not a good behavior to be like acting out upon.
Right.
So after changing my whole programming about like meat, dairy, etc., my life mentally got better. And then along with the nutrients I was getting from the plants, I became physically better. Like I started getting clear skin. I had more energy. Generally, I just like felt better and happier. Like I wasn't pessimistic ever, but like I was definitely a bit more negative. And that's when I focused on like all the conspiracies, because I was very negative and like I questioned authority and all that. But then it becomes more where now I'm looking into all this information because I want to have like a better wealth of understanding so I can make changes against it or with it so that I could become a better person personally. And I use my page as sort of like kind of like a reflection of what I learn and what I believe. So I have a lot of like things where I would, for example, make a negative post about talking about Monsanto poisoning food or something. So a lot of people might see that as bad, but it's bringing awareness to a company that cares more about profits than your health. So I think that's a good thing, because that means you recognize that that's a company you don't want to be involved with. That's a company you don't want to give your money to.
You don't want to give your money to.
and then they're spraying like glyphosate, like chemicals on a lot of fruits and vegetables. You find out the companies that they're using that on, and then you avoid buying those fruits from them. Like you choose organic, you choose like foods from local farmers markets and such.
You choose,
because
yeah.
This is what you want to be supporting. You don't want to be supporting these chemicals because they're going to keep adding more chemicals into the world. You know?
Yeah. No. I remember the first time I saw the documentary on it, I was like, it was talking about how I think was it in Haiti or Cuba that there was, it was one of the places they had I'm pretty sure that it was Haiti, but
I think it was Haiti.
Yeah, I think it was. And after the horrible situation that they were dealing with, and there's no food, there's no nothing, Monsanto's dropped beans. They sent them all these beans and all these seeds, and no one on the island ate it. They burned them instead because they were aware, they know. And when they burned them, it was like a colored smoke because of all the chemicals and stuff that were in the beans, which is insane to think that we're allowed. And that's where you have to be, again, we're just talking about, now we've kind of positioned to just being aware. You just have to be aware that this is allowed to happen because people are in power, in positions of power where there's too much money. There's too much money that's being pushed around, and people are succumbing to that instead of what's right for people. So you got to do what Brent is saying about finding what's right for you, doing the research, finding the people who have the information so you can take, better care of yourself and really invest in your health.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we got next. So, the next one I had was so just a couple more questions, and then we'll hit the exit questions because I know I'm keeping you a little bit longer now because we were already talking before this. But what would you say, bro, is the biggest achievement that you have as a result because you're somebody that is extremely informed. You got a ton of information and you're sharing it. That's why I love your page. But what's been the biggest achievement you think that's come from everything that you've learned, as well as the life that you've now adopted?
Like, I don't know. There's a lot, but some of the main ones I would say a personal achievement is just the fact that me and my girlfriend just became like healthier in terms of like relationship, like communication, health. Our lives just became more positive adopting this kind of like transition. And we're always continually growing, like we don't eat perfect all the time. Like every once in a while we'll get like eat like a Beyond Burger from A&W or whatever. Yeah, so like we'll partake on like the cheat every Friday. But generally we're incorporating like more whole food, plant-based foods and all that. So that achievement in itself, that like growth with someone like you love is really amazing. Like I feel like that's a great thing that I really appreciate. But when it comes to like in the bigger picture, I believe the fact that like my page has such a following in the sense of I'm able to like teach and like educate so many people, and like I get so many DMs of like questions and I try to answer so many and help people out, and it becomes this whole thing where I don't care anymore that it's such a big reach. I just care that I helped one person. And now I feel like that's just becoming like a snowball, it just becomes easier and becomes even better to help people. So I think the achievements personally was with my girlfriend and the constant growth we have, and then external single person out there over and over again.
I love it, man. All right, let's dig into let's see if maybe there's a couple questions. Hey, if you guys have any questions, there have been so many. This is like the most active like live that I've done, just so you.
Wow.
So, hey, if you guys have any questions for Brent, go ahead on the live. Go ahead and just throw a couple questions. So somebody asked, what's your page name?
My name, I have a personal account as well. It's called Vegan Breathing. That's like for my Brent Smith, more into my life personally. But Plant Romance, that's like my main account where I try to share as much plant-based information or even positivity to help you like critically think about your life and make the changes yourself, because only you can take the responsibility and make the change. Like and be like, yo, you should run that 5 miles. You should give up that meat. Like, they're not going to tell you this. You have to take responsibility for yourself. And Plant Romance is one of the vessels I try to use to help people make that change.
All right. Somebody asked, what happens when you're limited by cost and shelf life. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think I know what they mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to organic, obviously it's best to choose it, but I completely understand that there are like things such as food deserts where Whole Foods or a health food store or whatever the case is within like 5, maybe 20 miles of where you live. And they usually have it where these people have low income, so they can't even afford to get over there, or they don't have a car to get over there. So these people have to like kind of make do so when it comes to buying organic, there are some trigger foods like the dirty dozen that you never want to buy conventionally, like things like spinach, strawberries. They have like upwards of 30, 50 pesticides in them. So you want to avoid those kinds of foods at all costs. There's the clean, which is a list of 15 conventionally grown foods that have very low pesticides, such as avocados. Like they have a protective skin on them, for example. So they're not going to be like covered in pesticides, etc. So if you live in a place where it's hard to get organic, the Clean 15 list is what you should stick to if you're going to buy conventional, for example. But if you're going to be going to an actual health food store, if you want to put your time, if you want to make the journey, if you're able to, etc., then you should get the dirty dozen, but get those organic at these places because those are the ones you want the most. Some you can freeze. A lot of them, like strawberries, you could cut them up and freeze them so you can have them for like months on time, so you can buy in bulk.
I freeze I try to freeze as many of my fruits and stuff as I can.
Same with nuts and seeds. They're great if you put them in the fridge or even freezer because that stay in them. They have fat in them, which go rancid over time. So I used to put like nuts and seeds in my cupboard, but I had pumpkin seeds in there for a while because I bought so much. And then one of the bags started going like a little rancid. And then I was like, what's up with this? And that's when I actually learned myself. Or freezer.
Yep. All right, somebody else asked, what medicines did you eliminate? I might have missed that part.
So which one?
Someone asked, what medicines did you eliminate? They might have missed that part.
Okay, so different multitude. So I stopped taking a pill that was for my liver. Basically, that helped it out. But now that I eat a clean diet, it doesn't need it. There was also antibiotic. There's one that they wanted me to take consistently. Like it was like a preventative antibiotic. And I was like, I'm just going to expose my gut to these constant antibiotics, like wear and tear. Like I was like, no thanks. So that's another thing. So I got off those two things. And then from there, I still take my digestive enzymes because my pancreas literally just does not make a certain kind of enzyme like lipase. So it doesn't break down certain fats. So if I were to have like, for example, a whole bunch of nuts and seeds, I would need to take these enzymes. Otherwise, my body just wouldn't break it down and then absorb it. So it would just go right through me essentially. Like it would like break down by the acids, but it wouldn't like be absorbed in my body system properly. It would just go through me, or it would leak into my system but not be broken down properly, and then that would just cause even more problems, right? So those are the medications I took out, and some that I still have and take.
Okay, I like it. All right, somebody good sugars. They're asking for good options for sugar.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off by distincting the two between like sugars and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are just the general actual like sugars, whether it's like long chain, short chain, like simple carbohydrates. Your body actually needs those. Like your body runs on carbs, like your brain, glycogen, you can't trick it into running off of like ketones with like either going on a ketogenic diet or starving yourself, like fasting. Like that technically does the same kind of but I'm not going to get into that right now. But for the carbs and the good sugars, there are like natural sugars that you can take, like whole food sugars that are good, like strawberries, blueberries, etc. Like those are always fine. Or for most people, there's some trouble like high sugar fruits that you might want to take it easy on. But if we're going to talk about the actual sugar, like the added sugar that people add, the healthiest would be something like agave nectar or agave syrup. But the thing is, it has like one of the highest things of fructose.
Super high.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. If anything, take it with like fiber or cinnamon, because those like help your blood sugars and they slow down the distribution of it. So if you're taking agave, best to take it with cinnamon and or a lot of fiber.
Yeah.
Maple syrup is always a decent choice.
Yep.
And then personally for me, for the two sugars that I ever use would be like date sugar or just dates themselves, just use dates. That's always a great choice, the full kinds.
Yeah.
Or I use coconut palm sugar from like coconut palm. And that's the only other one I use because that has like really high minerals and vitamins in them. Like if you look at the nutrient, like in comparison of all of the like sugars, like coconut palm sugar is very high in minerals and nutrients. So that's one I always use.
Okay. I like it, man. That was good. Yeah. People asking a lot of questions. I love it. Actually, somebody touched on, I don't think we'll get too much into this, but somebody touched on honey being like a really debatable topic. I don't know. I'll give a little bit of my take on this, and you can give yours. And then we'll finish off with those exit questions. I got those 3 rapid fire questions. But for anybody that's wants insight on the whole honey, my take on it is number one, bees have to make honey, right? Bees are making honey natural. It's a natural thing that happens. Yes, it does come from an animal. So for the essence of the whole vegan conversation, that's why I really. But there are many other options that you can consume, like you're saying. But I think that people spend way too much time on it, to be honest. And I understand why, but I feel like it's way less of a it should be way less of a conversation. But we should protect the bees, and because they're animals like any other animal.
Okay, so I always love talking about the whole honey bee situation stuff because a lot of people don't really know. So there's 2, or I would even say like 3 different kinds of bee farms.
Yes.
There's like bee where it's like the people tend to actually care, quote unquote, about the bees themselves.
I know people like that myself.
Yeah, like I understand that some processes may be somewhat necessary because they clip and leave, and I think that might be like a little painful and not too great. Another thing is that when they usually take the honey, they usually spray them, knock them out, which is safe for the person taking the honey, or like more safe, but then also sedates and like knocks them out, which is kind of harmful to the third aspect is usually they tend to take all the honey and replace it with cheap sugar. So then the bees have a diet of cheap sugar, unnatural for them during the winters when they should be like, yeah. So that's another reason why I don't like it, like in that sense. But there are so many beneficial nutrients to honey, and like if you're a vegan that wants to take honey, I would say get it local, raw honey. And then also have it be used sparingly. You don't want to be using it all the time. You might need it for like either allergy, seasonal problems, or like if you're a little down the weather, like have some honey, I guess. But realistically, things like kind of spike your dopamine, like you're getting these quick sugars and stuff, and then you're wanting it more sort of thing. I recognize that when I cut out a lot of like added sugar, I craved it a lot less, So honey is just one of those things that you could just indulge in very easily because it's healthy, right? So it's because it's a healthy food, you can kind of use it as an excuse to overuse it.
No, that's great insight, man. Thank you.
And in the end, it is still bee vomit, like it's still just like regurgitated bee stuff. So in that sense, I don't know if it's vegan. It's a byproduct, but it's like, I don't know if you would say it's really because it's just pollen.
Yeah.
So
exactly. That's great insight, man. All right, rapid fire questions. You ready to go?
I think so.
All right. So, what's your favorite vegan food? Favorite vegan dish?
Vegan food would probably be hemp seed foods I love. Vegan dish, I'm gonna cheat and say smoothies because they're just so sweet and delicious. I can have them literally every day of my life.
Yeah, and you can pack so many. It's nutrient dense, and you can pack a ton of calories, and it doesn't take a lot. You can, especially for a
I
lot
put
of
like
people
nuts
that,
in it,
yeah,
like
exactly.
chia seeds, hemp seeds, like so much.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be native to Canada, I'm guessing. But what's your go-to vegan spot? Is there like a spot that you like to go to?
Okay, so I'm from Winnipeg, so like the best vegan places to eat aren't very like Boone Burger is very popular, but it's not really my favorite. They just opened
Gotcha.
a Cinnaholics, which is like cinnamon buns, but it's all vegan at the place, and that's really tasty. It's very too much,
Moderation.
but it's just,
Moderation. I was just about to say moderation. Moderation. Yeah. Like
just once a
anything.
month. Go have a cinnamon bun once a month. That's all you need. And but I'm gonna say for Canada in general, there's a restaurant in Vancouver called Meat, and it is by far one of the most like intense experiences of my life. Get like that like feeling when you look at a whole menu and you have no idea what to order. Like their whole menu is vegan and it's like that. Like you literally
So
look
many.
around and you look at the other food and you're like, oh, that looks good, but that looks good. No, I'm gonna get that. I can't. I have to get that. So back 2 or 3 times if you visit Vancouver.
Okay. All right. I like it. All right. Two more. One word to describe how being vegan makes you feel.
Thriving.
I love it. Words who are looking to take on the journey, or maybe they're already on the plant-based journey. And again, the vegan transition isn't about like go vegan. It's about, hey, listen, let's clean up how you're eating and let's start to see how your body responds by adding in more of these fruits and vegetables. And hey, starting because you can thrive. But what words of advice would you give somebody looking to go on the journey themselves?
Okay, you cut out a little bit there. So what was like the final question aspect?
I'm not sure if we lost you.
So I couldn't hear. Yeah, a little bit, but it's like a little.
Okay, all right. Okay, we're back now. Yeah, I was just saying words of advice that you would give anybody on the journey to going plant-based.
Okay, so I would say the first thing is positives, the little changes that you make, like whether it's the morning you didn't have meat, because you always have meat in the morning, or the whole day where you went plant-based for a whole day. Like literally congratulate yourself. Like that's a big accomplishment. Like no matter what people say, gratitude for how far you've come just in that little tiny bit. Like you're making change. Like you're doing good. Some people don't even recognize this. They're not aware of it. And they just slip through life eating terribly for their whole life. So the fact that you're aware of it and you actually did something, even if it's a whole day of going vegan, congratulate yourself. On the other end of it, if you do mess up, like for example, if you're like a consistent vegan and you do have a cheat meal, like and you like go out with friends and they order pizza, they order wings, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna have one, like whatever, and you eat it, don't beat yourself up about it, like just and then own it, take responsibility. Be like, yeah, I had a fucking chicken wing. I haven't had one in 2 years. And then people would be like, you know what, that's fair, Like just own it and then realize that that's not who you are regularly and just continually being the good person that you are.
That last one really resonates with me because like there have been times, just like you said, like I'm out and like, okay, the only thing to have is this pizza or whatever, or something else that's not vegan. And I would be like, I remember especially like when I was like a year, 2 years into it, I was like, I was starting to get to the point to where I didn't crave it, but like I stopped for remembering what it tasted like. And I was like, let me just see if I even like it. So I would have a bite and people would like go crazy. They're like, oh my gosh, bro, like I'm choosing to have this. So what? You know what I mean? But it was like a little mini experiment because I was like, not only do I not like this really, I don't need it. Like I don't want it. And it just further pushed me to continue going on. I agree, like it's not a big deal. Like you're aware. The best advice that I've actually heard on you. Dude, thank you for coming on, man. I really do appreciate it, man. This has been a really fun conversation.
I had a great time, man.
Any last words or anything that you want to share with people, man? I would love to talk about doing a little program together, man. And like your side of the nutrition and do something cool. Maybe we can talk about that one day.
Okay, so my last words would actually be tied into like programming here. So When you wake up, literally the first thing, always remember this, say thank you. First thought in your head should be thank you. People don't get to wake up. A lot of people don't get to wake up with the health that you have, you know? People wake up like coughing. People wake up like high blood pressure, obese, sweaty, like in the state of like shock or fear or danger. Like you wake up in a nice comfy bed, thank you. You wake up just with a smile on my face saying thank you. That's like a huge practice that has just changed my life in general. And if you adopt that, like it'll bleed into your life, you know, like your days will just feel better, you know?
100%, man. Hey guys, Marcus here. Listen, I'm so appreciative of you guys coming and checking out the podcast. Thank you so much for taking your time to listen. And if you know someone that this would help, please share this podcast with them. Help us to reach as many people as possible and make a serious impact. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you get alerted when every new episode releases.